We are very pleased to welcome to the studio the Vice Consul at the US Consulate in Melbourne, Todd McGee. Todd, good morning to you.
Good morning, glad to be here.
We wanted to talk to you because we watch from afar about this never-ending process called the US electoral process, and we wanted to know more about how it works. For example, how in a primary that they have at the moment, where both sides give votes to candidates, what's the process of voting? Do you write on a bit of paper? Do you click on your iPhone? Or
It's a very legitimate question, and it varies from state to state and by party. So what we have now are the primaries and the caucuses, which kind of determine who the two major parties will nominate to run for president of the United States. And the laws change, or the rules, I should say, change depending on what state you're in. So, for example, in Iowa, the caucus is there. The Republicans have a system where it's kind of like a ballot and voting. The Democrats have a different system where what they do is they actually kind of get in a big room, they gather together, and they huddle in groups to support their candidate. And what happens is a candidate needs 15% of the votes in order to continue on. And if it doesn't have 15%, then that group gets disbanded and they have to go join another group. So that's just an example of how the laws or how the rules differ by political party and by state.
Well,
so
that couldn't possibly work in a populous state, could it? Or you'd have too many people.
Well, it's we're only talking delegates now. So then the caucuses are a little bit different. So Iowa has a caucus, and caucuses are sponsored by the political parties, as opposed to a primary in New Hampshire, which is run by local and state governments.
I'd never picked up there's a difference, that Iowa has a caucus and New Hampshire has a primary.
Yeah.
Well, what I couldn't work out was it doesn't matter who wins, all the candidates are still alive.
They are. Well, there is a special session where they go bare knuckles boxing, but that's rare to have to enact that rule. So two go in, one walk out. No, I'm just kidding. It's a very complicated process.
And it seems to go on forever, because it has been going on forever, and the election isn't until November.
Well, what we're doing here
and then the president doesn't take office till the following January.
The actual presidential election is in November 2016. Now, it's been saying it's been going on forever, but a lot of that has been media attention going. The actual process towards the nomination started with the Iowa caucuses. So anything prior to the caucuses has really just been media attention granted, and they have had debates and that sort of stuff. But the actual nomination process started with the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primaries coming up.
Americans pretty much don't like to be told what to do by their government. What would their reaction be to the fact that we are told by our government that we must vote?
It was a surprise for me when I got here to kind of learn that it's mandatory. I think it's a right that Americans, some choose not to exercise it, but I think, having lived around the world in a lot of places myself, it's a precious right to be able to have a say in your government. So I hope that Americans take advantage of it. If you have American listeners, I'd like to remind them that they actually have the ability to vote from overseas. If you go to our consulate webpage, it's melbourne.usconsulate.gov. We have instructions on how to register to vote, so you don't need to be in the U.S. to actually vote.
And when you're an American citizen, it seems to me that in Australia, people say to you, who do you barrack for? Mm-hmm. And you've got a football team. Mm-hmm. In America, it seems to me that everybody is either a Republican or a Democrat. People say, I'm a Democrat. Or I'm a Republican.
They do, but there are independents. There's smaller parties. You have the Green Party. You'll have people that potentially run as independents. When you see the actual presidential ballot, there will be more than just two names on the ballot. The ones that get the attention, though, are going to be the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate, but there are going to be other candidates on the ballot.
Todd, you're awfully young. I assume that your pay...
I appreciate that.
Your pay is being held by your parents until you turn 18. Where are you from?
I'm originally from South Florida. My wife and I own a house in Southern California. I was in the Navy prior to the State Department, so I traveled all over the world. I've been working for the U.S. government a total of 15 years.
How long have you been in Melbourne?
I've been in Melbourne a little over a year. So I moved here from Mexico. That was my prior assignment.
And how long are you going to be here?
I have about a little over a year left here. So we get a new country every 2 to 3 years.
Did you call it Melbourne before you came here?
It's funny. All my friends before I came here, the ones that thought they knew Australia, I'd tell them I'm going to Melbourne, and they'd be like, it's Melbourne. And I kind of took it to be annoying when they would say, I'm like, you're not even Australian. You can't tell me how to say it. But yeah.
Got a footy team?
I like the Saints here. I used to live in New Orleans, so they have the New Orleans Saints, the American football team. I live close to St. Kilda, so I tend to follow the Saints here.
One thing that Australians observe about Americans when we go to America is that no one is ever from the place where they are. When you said you're from South Florida, do you mean you were born in South Florida?
I was born in South Florida,
Right.
went to school through high school in South Florida, then I went to college in New Orleans. After that, I joined the Navy and, traveled around the world.
But you've got some association with Boston as well, you told me.
I do. A lot of my family's from the New England area. They live in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And, talking sports, New England always has such good teams, whether you're talking the Patriots, the Red Sox, the Celtics. And being a big sports guy myself, my relatives up there would always kind of rub it in that my teams were horrible. So for that reason, I have a lot of, call it animosity towards the New England teams.
Because if you bump into someone who's in Melbourne, they're pretty much from Melbourne.
Yeah.
They're born in Melbourne, they went to school in Melbourne, they work in Melbourne. It's such a different thing culturally. Sitting next to you is a mad Super Bowl fan.
Okay.
Much so that he has declared Budweiser to be a great breakfast beer because the Super Bowl starts about
I'm not
10.
judging.
Yes, you make it sound as if that's a bad thing. You'll be watching the Super Bowl on Monday?
I will be at work Monday morning, running in between breaks to the public affairs section, which will have it televised. Yes, so it's weird having it on a Monday morning here, as opposed to Super Bowl Sunday. But trying to
Do you have
embrace
a
it.
prediction for us?
I don't have a prediction. I can tell you that I'm supporting the Broncos. I tend to support. Well, my team's the San Diego Chargers, and they're in the American Football League as opposed to NFC, the National Football Conference, AFC, as opposed to the NFC. So I'm putting my support behind the Denver Broncos. I love watching Peyton Manning play, so that's who I'm supporting.
Yeah, that's logical. You were born in South Florida. You went to university in New Orleans. Why wouldn't you barrack for a football team that's in California?
Well, why would I go for Carolina?
Yeah.
I mean, so Colorado's closer to California than Carolina is, right? So
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Melbourne.usconsulate.gov is where Americans who are in Australia can vote in the election in November.
They can't vote. They can get information on it. You can also go to fvap.gov, that's Federal Voting Assistance Program.gov, to register for your absentee ballot there. And there's instructions state by state.
Who'll win the election?
I can't tell you that. If I knew, I'd be doing a different job.
Don't worry, he knows. He's just not allowed to say. Todd, very nice to make your acquaintance, and good luck. And I'm sure the folks at St Kilda Football Club will be making a note to issue you and your wife some invitations to Saints games.
Well, thank you all very much for having me down here. Hopefully we'll talk again in the future when we get more results.